The greatest public policy failure in U.S. history is the war on drugs. Here the intentions are great. The results are a dismal failure. Drug addiction and abuse is a serious problem made worse by prohibition. We all have friends, family, or neighbors who've been victimized by drugs. The cost of the war on drugs has been estimated at $2 trillion, more than the wars in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan put together. What do we have to show for our war on drugs? A per capita prison rate that's 5 times higher than most every industrialized country in the world. Widespread drug addiction and abuse, massive federal and state budget deficits, discrimination against minorities, and the less affluent who are disproportionately victimized by law enforcement, criminal courts, and imprisonment. Excessive taxation, continuing erosion in our rights against search and seizure, and inadequate law enforcement for real crimes against people and their property. The most outrageous waste of government resources are those used to investigate, arrest, prosecute, and incarcerate marijuana users. Woo! We do not want our kids using it. Providing it to children is and should remain a crime.
Yeah.
But spending limited government resources on marijuana criminalization for adults is a colossal waste. In the case of drug prohibition, we throw people in jail for a medical problem, openly violate rights against search and seizure, spend billions of taxpayer dollars on law enforcement, prosecution, and prisons. We empower gangs, terrorists, and drug cartels with the obscene profits created by the war on drugs. Courageous law enforcement people are given impossible tasks, fighting against the law of supply and demand, tempted with corruption, and then left with insufficient resources to protect citizens from real crimes. Then the people are told we have to cut back on education and other government programs to pay for the mess. The most horrifying consequence of our war on drugs has been death and destruction caused by the U.S. war on drugs in Mexico. One difference from alcohol prohibition and drug prohibition is that the United States was not a superpower during alcohol prohibition. Now we have exported our drug prohibition. The United States war on drugs has resulted in over 31,000 deaths in Mexico in the last 5 years. Mexico is our friend. They're our neighbor. Those deaths are the fault of the United States. To our friends, I say, demasiado muerta en Mexico es porque los Estados Unidos. Too much death in Mexico is because of the United States. We can disempower the drug cartels by hitting them where it hurts the most, in their pocketbooks, without firing a single shot. Decriminalize drugs and we will take the profits out of their business. I predict in 2012 that decriminalization will succeed both in California and in Colorado. 46% of California voters wanted marijuana decriminalized for adults in the November 2010 election. I was dismayed to hear that the United States Attorney General said that he would vigorously enforce federal laws against marijuana regardless of the outcome. It was at that time I realized that it was not enough to change the laws in California. It must also be done at the federal level. As a CPA, I've learned of numerous IRS audits of medical marijuana dispensaries where the IRS has disallowed 100% of the expenses and assessed tax liabilities that exceed the dispensary's cumulative historical income. The taxes are confiscatory. The owners are looking at multiple years in prison. These federal policies are an outrage. I believe that the president and many legislators see the overwhelming evidence that drug prohibition is a dismal failure, both in terms of costs and results. But they have concluded that it's political suicide to advocate an end to it. As with previous movements to end slavery, for a woman's right to vote, to end alcohol prohibition, to end segregation, and for gay rights, each started out as a seemingly radical or impossible concept, gradually gained acceptance, and eventually evolved to the point that we look back with disbelief at how it used to be. We need to repeal all marijuana prohibition laws for adults. Criminal acts committed against individuals or property under the influence of alcohol or any drug should remain a crime. We need to establish and protect patient rights and the rights of providers for all medical marijuana. And we need to reduce all felony convictions for marijuana possession to a lesser offense. The United States spent $700 billion on defense last year. We incurred 43% of total world defense dollars. We spent 7 times more than the next largest country. We spent more than the 10 largest other countries on defense put together. We could lop off $200 billion and still spend 5 times more than the next largest country on defense. I'm an accountant. I understand numbers. I would rather cut $200 billion off defense than reduce a teacher's salary by 50 cents.
Here, here.
Yeah.
Regarding pensions, a deal is a deal. However right or wrong, the government needs to figure out how to live up to agreements for services rendered in the past. Government should live up to old promises, but old promises need not apply for future services. If we can't afford the pensions going forward, allow government employees to contribute to 401k plans for future services. That way government employees could invest in the private sector just like the rest of us. When public employees realize that their well-being is affected by overall prosperity, perhaps we will get more effective government as well.